Hi, hello, welcome back. In the last video, I showed you how we lived in an old Buddhist temple in Tohoku, Japan, and this time around, I would like to show you what we were doing there as volunteers. Because Tohoku region was hit by a disastrous earthquake and tsunami in 2011, volunteers started coming in to help. We arrived in 2015, which was 4 years after the disaster, so we didn't have to clean the streets of the rubble or something like that, but there was still a lot of things that the organization kept on doing, especially when it came to small businesses and local people. We stayed for almost 3 months, and in that time we visited places like Rikuzen Takata, Ofunato, Otsuchi, Iwate, Tome, Morioka, Fukushima City, Shiwa, Minami Sanariku, and a lot of places in between that I don't even know the names of probably. In today's video, I'll focus only on Rikuzen Takata and Ofunato, since those were two places that we spent most of our days. So our work week consisted of 4 things, and if I remember correctly, it was Monday, Tuesday working in a greenhouse, Thursday and Friday visiting a fisherman, on Saturdays we were visiting kids in a daycare center, and on Sundays we would visit our neighbor and help him with tea. Let's start with the fisherman, because I think that was the first thing we did after arrival as well. So we would come in the morning, probably around 9 AM, and got into what we called a sauna suit, because it was so goddamn hot. Especially during summer, when you're hitting like 30 degrees Celsius every day in humid northern Japan. So we would help fishermen clean oysters. They grow them on these fields on sea, and I think it can take up to a year for the oysters to get big enough, and then they take them out and you have to clean them. I guess that on a bigger scale you have machines to clean the oysters, but in this case this was a family business, so we had to do it by hand. And that's what we are doing here. You're basically just getting rid of any dirt and parasites and then separating the oysters by size. So that was one thing, and then I mentioned the greenhouse, and we would go to the greenhouse to help with tomatoes. But like I said, this was in the middle of the summer, so sometimes it would get just insanely hot. I remember one time they bought us ice creams, and we would drink a lot of iced tea as well, which is not sweet. That was one thing I learned after arrival. You can buy a lot of tea around in Japan, but there is never any sugar in it. And coming from Europe, where they put sugar in any sort of drink, it was a little bit of a shock. But during these hot days, I remember we would drink iced barley tea, and it gives it a very different flavor. It doesn't taste like any tea you ever drank. I think it was called mugicha, and I would always describe the taste as like coffee tea, basically. Anyway, we would be taking care of the plants. We never collected the tomatoes themselves, but we could eat them if we wanted to. We had a little basket with wheels on them to move around, and with gloves on our hands would take away unnecessary leaves and parts of the plant from the stem to make the tomatoes juicier and tastier. Basically, you can let the leaves be, but then you're taking the nutrition away from the fruit itself. Of course, you would have slippers, because this is Japan. You wear slippers whenever you're inside any sort of house, so that was sort of funny. And yeah, here you can see how wet I am, and that's partly because of the sweat and partly because I would soak the little towel in cold water to cool myself down. Wasn't my idea. I think people did that and it worked, so I did it as well. And I can't describe how hot it gets in a greenhouse in summer. Those two things, working in a greenhouse and working with oysters, were probably the most physically demanding, but we had a lot of breaks in between, so it wasn't that bad. On Sundays we would visit our neighbor. He had an apple orchard, but we would help him with tea. But yeah, he was just too nice to us. Looking back at it, I don't feel like we did too much of hard work. Instead, we would just spend a lot of time with him. Sometimes we would go for dinner or something. So I don't even have that many videos. Instead, I have this picture of me tending a tea bush. And then the last part was visiting daycare centers. When we were in the temple, we would visit one specific daycare center in Ofunato, so we would get to know the kids better. But then we would also travel and meet a lot of kids all around Tohoku. I can't really show you much, which is a shame because we visited so many places and towns and schools and daycare centers, but I can't show faces. Japanese are very particular with this. When it comes to showing faces online, especially with kids as well, you have to blur them if you don't have permission. So I will try my best. I think I found some footage that I think I can show you. So a lot of times we would visit kids, tell them where we are from, show them a little bit of our language, play some games with them that we played as kids, and spend maybe lunchtime together. In Ofunato, which was the place that we visited regularly, there was maybe like 15 to 20 kids, but then we traveled all around Tohoku and we must have seen like hundreds of kids during that period of time. It was crazy. That was a lot of fun, but it was also really exhausting sometimes because all the kids would just want to play with us or like run around and pick them up, you know, or just ask us things in Japanese, and we didn't really speak Japanese. So I remember that in the beginning it was sort of frustrating for me that I couldn't communicate. But then it turned out to be a good learning experience because I could just ask the kids like, "Kore wa nan desu ka?" like meaning, what is this? And they would tell me the word. So over time I learned some things. I can't speak Japanese at all. I just know some phrases and some words. So in the end that was sort of helpful. So those were 4 things that we did as volunteers, and I just want to clarify, we were not there because we are so good with kids or tomatoes or cleaning oysters. It took me a little bit of time to understand myself, what am I doing there, and in the end I realized it wasn't about the work itself, it was about the people. Just showing the people that there are people that still care and bring them something new to think about or talk about, and it was all, I think, just social work basically. I would love to show you more, but I have to go through all the footage and see what I can or can't show you. But that's it for this video. There's a lot more coming in, so if you want to see more videos like this, definitely subscribe and click the bell button. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below, and I will see you next time. Ciao!